Welcome to Marc My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Marc My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Let's be real, leading a business is lonely. When the big decisions land on your desk, who do you actually talk to? That's where GrowX Labs comes in. Their executive decision support gives founders and execs direct access to a strategic sounding board. Someone who's been in the trenches and knows how to cut through the noise. Whether it's team tension, high-stakes moves, or just needing to talk it out, GrowX helps you move forward with clarity and confidence. Head to growxlabs.com/mark. That's GRWX labs.com/mark and book your discovery call. So next week, this episode, first of all, I guess I should start off by saying this is a very timely episode for me. I've been dreaming for many years of becoming a public speaker and telling my story and doing all those things. And it's taken me a long time, but as of this recording, next Thursday, a week from now, I will be speaking at Podcasting Made Simple. Marianne is already cheering me on. I love it. And I basically, so when it comes to all things internet, going live on TikTok and doing things like that, I feel like I don't have a whole lot of fear, and I really take on all of these speaking engagements, even this show, which I can see a big difference between 2020 and today. I'm much more confident, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit about that. But I know Marianne, she focuses on keynote speaking, speaking fears and stuff like that. I actually feel like you put me on a real stage in public and I might not have a lot of fear. Now, I could very well eat those words, which is good that we have it documented in a public podcast episode. But I will just cut to the chase here a little bit and just say that Marianne Hickman is a public speaking and sales coach, certified breakthrough trainer for This Is Me LLC. She helps entrepreneurial parents break through barriers to grow their business. And she's 26 years of speaking industry and experience, a decade-long tenure in sales. And I'm actually going to try to read what is on her website, as I think it is beautifully articulated. So just off of Marianne's website, public speaking is the number one fear in the world, and most people's stories die with them, but your story deserves to be told. And she wants to show us how to overcome the fear and anxiety that holds us back from confidently sharing our message, how to be comfortable in our own skin, speak with power, and eliminate imposter syndrome, which is actually something I'm going to be speaking about next week. That's actually my topic, and it's imposter syndrome as a guest on podcasts, but I can take it a lot more than that. I'm going to stop rambling on. Welcome to Marc My Words, Marianne. How you doing?
Mark, thank you for having me, and I'm excited for your speaking engagement next week. I'm going to be at that event. We watching virtually, rather. I'm excited to see you speak there. That'll be epic.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is something I've always wanted to do and just tell my story. And just in general with my story, I've become a lot more open as time is going on. I was definitely a little more conservative, didn't really, I don't know if it's that I didn't want to talk about it or if the conversations just weren't right to share it, but I know since like last year and especially this year, I've really been telling that story more. I'm probably just getting more and more comfortable, and I'm sure you can diagnose that. But yeah, we're here to tell your story and hopefully educate us on public speaking.
Well, that's the hope. And whether you take the stage in front of a room of, 7 people, 70 people, 7,000 people, it really doesn't matter. And that's the thing. I've been seeing a lot on social media right now, and I'm really grateful to be seeing things like this of your follower count doesn't matter. And I used to be really nervous about that. I'm like, no, I want the followers. It's a social credit score. And I get it. Yes, there is some legitimacy. There are people that will or won't work with you based on your follower count. But the point is impact. If you're in a room of 7 or 70,000 people, how are you impacting those people? How are you leaving them better? And the point of storytelling, the way that you'll tell your story and the way you have been telling your story is not for the sake of telling the story, is my guess. You're not telling your story just because you want to tell your story. You're telling your story so that other people's stories change. And that's why
That's
we do this.
That's exactly why I'm doing. I mean, I have a lot of reasons for doing this show, and I'm sure at some point I'll kind of summarize how I got into doing this to begin with, because imposter syndrome played a big role and why I didn't pursue anything because in my gut, I could feel as I was growing up, I always had a big interest in television and, just entertainment, creative stuff. And I've been working in the TV industry for the past 20 years, but I have never done anything except for my show behind the mic or in front of a camera. And I kind of angled my career in the direction that I have because in my mind, especially as somebody who was born with cleft palate and lip and, a couple other issues, I always call it a package deal. But it's one of those things where it's like you get all that external feedback from people telling you how they supposedly see you, and then you internalize that, and you're like, well, who's gonna want to listen to me? Who's gonna want to watch me? And I needed a little bit of support from people along the way in order to get to this point, and I can pick up that part of the story later if you have any thoughts on what I'm saying so far.
Well, yeah, imposter syndrome is something that we have gotten used to hearing. This is a common vernacular phrase, imposter syndrome, imposter syndrome. Well, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is an erosion of confidence that says, do I have the right to be here? Do I have the right to be in front of the mic? Do I have the right to be on TV? Do I have the right to start a podcast? Do I have the right to be a guest on a podcast? Do I even have the right to post on Instagram? This imposter syndrome can manifest no matter how big the stage, in person stages, digital stages, something so simple as an Instagram post, even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're just someone who has an opinion on something, imposter syndrome can stick you like molasses in your tracks and just make you question what are they going to think? And it's actually pretty selfish if we think about it. Imposter syndrome is what are they going to think of me? What if I don't say the right thing? I would parallel it with stage fright. They're very, very parallel insofar as we are so overly concerned with us. We're concerned with will I present the right message? Will I be judged? Will I be liked? Blah, blah, blah. And the more we lean into imposter syndrome, the further away we lean from confidence. Confidence is the other hand that says, hey, listen, it's not ego. That's something different. Ego is the counterfeit to confidence. Confidence says, I've learned what I've learned. I'm confident in what I've learned. I don't question what I learned. That doesn't mean I know everything, But while I care about you, I don't care what you think of me. And there's a couple of ways, again, that can be interpreted and misinterpreted. Do I care what my spouse thinks of me? I kind of do. I really do because I respect him and his opinion. Do I care what my God thinks of me? Absolutely, because I respect my God and his opinion. Do I care what someone who I've never met on Instagram thinks of me? Not really. It's to the point where, man, if you go over my old YouTube videos, dude, there people are like, "Oh my gosh, her lipstick is so weird. Oh my gosh, are we just gonna ignore her lashes and blah blah blah?" And it used to get under my skin, and now I just laugh at it because that's not the point. The point of me posting is to hopefully find the person out there who says, I Googled a question today on my last knot that I've tied in this rope that I'm barely holding on to. It's 2 a.m. and I need answers because I can't sleep. And your content came up. So thank you. This just happened to me today, right before this podcast. I was online and I was like, I don't know if I've laughed today. I don't know if I've felt that laughter today and I need some laughter. So I go on and I start scrolling Instagram because that's where the fun stuff is. And I found this account that I go to every time I need some laughter. And sure enough, my wish was his command. I laughed and I sent a comment to the host and I was like, I know that maybe he really won't see it, doesn't matter. But I want to put some good juju out there and say, thank you for posting this. I needed a laugh today and this was it. And as creators, as podcast hosts, as speakers, as entrepreneurs, I would like to think that that's the reason that we started business. That's the reason that we got on stage was to help another person, not so that we could be so self-absorbed in imposter syndrome and stage fright and all this garbage. The point is helping someone else. I've heard this phrase. I wish I could attribute it to the right person, but it goes like this. When you feel helpless, get helpful. And that eliminates so much of imposter syndrome and stage fright right off the bat.
I wish that I could take you everywhere that I go. That is like some of the best advice I think I have ever heard, maybe ever.
Wow.
I mean, this
Probably
this
metal.
is this is really like speaking to my soul. I never thought about just all of these like hang-ups that I've had on myself and on, speaking or just the things that I've been through and just the way that I get absorbed into it. Believe it or not, I've never really thought of it as being selfish. And I know you're not here to speak in like a negative, like
Oh, of
you're
course not.
selfish. But uh, I never really thought of it quite that way. And I do know that there's always a lot of reasons, especially when it comes to me. I have a million reasons for everything that I do, but I know that doing this show and the desire to be a speaker a big a big reason for that, especially I'll use TikTok as an example where I meet uh potential live creators. So I go live several days a week and a lot of people have fear. To me, going live on TikTok or going live on YouTube or whatever, it's like, okay, the only thing in my mind that's between me and everybody else is like the computer or the phone. And it's not like I'm out, even though it's public, I'm not out in public. So I personally feel a big sense of comfort and a lot less stress going live that way. And in my mind, I'm just because it's so easy for me now, and I see that there is really no reason to be fearful, especially with all the challenges that I have. That I'm still like sometimes I feel foolishly putting myself out there because the results are not always great. Just with, as you pointed out, random people saying things, and whatever. I do agree with you that some of that stuff you gotta try to get past because you don't know them. But it's a big deal to put yourself out there, but I feel like if I can do it with everything that I have stacked up against me, because I don't have all the tools that a lot of people have. I have to enunciate and work a little harder. I can't just relax, at least I don't feel like I can, and just speak. I have to really try to make sure I project so I can be understood and heard. And that's a little bit of an extra burden. So when I see people saying, oh, I don't know if I can do it, I'm so nervous, I just want to help them. And I'm hoping that by doing all this stuff, the podcasts, going live on TikTok, that I can reach people and make them think about that kind of stuff and maybe inspire them. If that guy is doing it and he's, plowing through, he doesn't care, even though he does sometimes, he doesn't care and he's doing it anyway, then maybe I can do it too.
Well, I love that perspective. And I really hope that you see, and everyone that's listening, I hope that you see whatever you can call it a handicap, you can call it a challenge, you can call it whatever. All of us have them. All of us have them. Some are more obvious than others, but all of us have them. I hope that you're seeing that as your X factor. Xavier from the X-Men, he got something right. There's this superpower we have. I remember I was watching that show. Do you know Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, that kind of thing? I I watched an episode. I wish I could remember his name. I think his name was David Williams. I'm not sure what his name was. I've tried to Google it real quick. I couldn't find it, but I found the clip. This comedian. Now, comedians, they primarily use their voice. Words are their form of comedy. It's very seldom that a comedian doesn't use their voice. I think Tate Face is one that does that, but he's got some magic involved in that, which is really cool. But there was this comedian that was exclusively an auditory comedian who was mute. Did you see this one?
I feel like if I did, it would make an impact on me.
I
My
need to
my
send you
wife
this
might
video.
know.
I need to send you this video because this comedian, if you look it up on YouTube, it's got like 15 million, 14.8 million views. It says Lost Voice Guy has the audience roaring, but his comedy routine, he's got to be using a tool similar to Stephen Hawking to talk. I see him typing it out, but he's got no voice, you guys. He's got no voice and he's using a verbal auditory platform for his career. Talk about no excuses. And talk about the X Factor, 15 million views. He's on Britain's Got Talent. That was in 2018. And here we are almost 10 years still talking about him. I don't know what he's doing right now, but I don't know if that was a 15 minutes of fame or if he's gone on to make a career out of it. But there's things that we all come up against. And I know on all of our shoulders, there's that little devil telling us that we can't or why we shouldn't. And sometimes that little devil materializes in the comments of our Instagram or our YouTube or whatever it is. All of those things I was listening to a speaker one time, and this is what they told me. And it felt like they were talking directly to me. Maybe you've had this happen to you where you're at a conference and the speaker just locks eyes with you. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm the only one in here. So this happened to me. And he said, whatever that little devil on your shoulder is trying to convince you of, whether you shouldn't be here, or you don't have the credibility, or you don't have the longevity, or you don't have blah, 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 blah. You're too thin, you're too fat, you're too tall, you're too short, you're not smart enough, you're not accessible enough, whatever it might be. That little devil sees you as a threat. There's an image that was painted or drawn, I think it was charcoal, years and years ago of a saint, one of the Catholic saints named Saint Anthony, and he's got like 50 devils around him trying to, get at him. And a lot of people look at that and they say, oh, he must have been such an evil person because there's so much darkness and hatred around him. And the opposite is true. There's so much darkness and there's so much not necessarily contention, but resistance coming up against you because of how powerful you are. Because of how important you is. And this is what the speaker said to me. He said, the darkness is trying to convince you of the lie that is the polar opposite of the truth. So if you're listening to this and you've had those doubts, you've had that little devil on your shoulder saying you're not smart enough, you're not articulate enough, you're not whatever enough, get excited because they have just revealed to you your superpower, whether it's a cleft palate or whether it's a one leg. I've got several students who have that, and whether it's whatever you think your handicap is, this is your X factor. This is your superpower. This is why you will work, and this is why you are such a threat to the darkness because of this thing, not not the lie that they're trying to spoon feed you and say you can't because of this. The truth is you will because of this, and that has stuck with me ever since.
So, first of all, I can relate to the whole, not so much public speaking, but definitely concerts. I've been to a few where the performer has just eyeballed with me, and that is an incredible feeling. I also want to note that I wonder if I'm going to get to the end of this lifetime, move on to wherever we go, and learn that all of this was like my superpower. I was a superhero all along and I didn't know it. So I love, oh my gosh, this could be like a 5 hour episode. I love the way that you look at everything. I actually want, not that this isn't like amazingly interesting, but I should probably, since you're one of the several you Collins that I have met who have turned into entrepreneurs, I would love to talk a little bit, if we can, about your path and how you got into public speaking, because it looks like you were a photographer and did some other things along the way. Were you like a performer growing up? Was there anything that you dreamed about doing?
Oh man, I love that you asked that. I don't get to tell this story very often. So when I was 15, I was man, I was one of those girls that fell in love with Phantom of the Opera. I was such a hardcore fangirl. I went into theater when I was a kid because I thought acting was so fun. I think a lot of actors and actresses go into theater because they want to have a taste of a life they know they'll never experience. And for a brief moment on stage, you get to pretend you're someone else and live that vicariously. And maybe that's the thing that makes me want to travel all over the world and experience all these different things. But when I was 15, I remember when I lived in Denver at the time. I went to Betcher Concert Hall. I saw Phantom of the Opera, and I was smitten, absolutely smitten. I became a Francophile. I was studying all things photography, and not just photography and French culture overlapped for me thanks to my aunt Paula. She was a French speaker and also photographer, and that was my fascinations. I was like, I love the French culture. I love photography, and that's what put me into being a photographer since I was like 15 years old. Did it in junior high and in high school and college, made a small career out of it. I abandoned that when I stopped knowing. Well, I never knew. I never knew how to do business well. I was underwater in business constantly. I was paying more in gas and props and travel than I was making photography because I didn't have a business coach and I didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of killed that passion. Unfortunately, I still have my camera. I still shoot, but I don't shoot for anyone else anymore. I just shoot for me. That's what I love to do because I didn't know how to run business. But I remember being on stage and I was, in musicals and I was in productions. And I remember raising my first $1,200, biggest amount of money I've ever had to my name when I was, let's see, I was 12 years old. And I used that $1,200 to go to France and to England. And oh my gosh, I was just smitten. I was like, I'm going to be a singer on the Paris Opera House stage. It's going to be amazing and epic. And then that little shoulder devil came over and, and through the form of somebody else's feedback that I unfortunately listened to that said, you're not a very good singer. So I was like, oh, I guess that's not for me. And so I became an orator. And on that trip, Mrs. Wilson took us. She was my seventh grade teacher. And she took us on that trip. And she was the one and I hope that she hears these podcasts once in a while because I owe her so much thanks because she was the one that allowed me to ride on the coattails of her faith for quite some time. She was the one that called me a scholar for the first time. She was the one that always complimented my vocabulary. She was the one that always, maybe it was tongue in cheek, but she always said that I had something to say. And she was the one that put me in my first speaking competition. Now, I thought as a child in a 10-child family that a speaking competition was just an argument. That's what I thought speaking competitions were, competitive speaking. Not the case. So I competed and I did these competitions, but I didn't know. I had no idea that speaking would have anything to do with career. I didn't see a monetary path in speaking. I didn't see a future in speaking. And so I just kind of shelved it. I continued with my photography. I went to school. I became a mom, amazing calling and my favorite thing in the world. But I didn't pick up speaking again until about, gosh, it was probably 2006 that I went to a seminar for the first time. And I watched in that seminar as the room was full of 700 people. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did this guy get 700 people here? And then he does his call to action, sends people to the back of the room, and he's selling a DVD set. This tells you how long ago this was. He's selling a CD and DVD set. And he said, you can go back to the back table and you can buy this. And I watched as 2/3 of the room got up, walked to the back table. The back table's taking credit cards, swiping things, people are writing checks. And in my head, I'm doing the math. And I'm thinking if 700 people are in this room and 2/3 of them go up and they go back to the back of the room and they spend $300 each, then 2/3 of 700 times $300 is a lot of money, more than I've ever made in this amount of time, more than I've ever made in a 10-minute call to action or one day event ever. And I thought to myself, there's something to this. Oh my gosh, there's something to this. This could be sustainable. Speaking, if the message is good enough, if it's powerful enough, and if it's life-changing enough, then it can be sustainable. And it wasn't until later that I learned about energy, and people buy energy, not stuff. They weren't really buying DVDs. They were buying transformation. I learned all about that. And that's been the goal. And now what I love doing is finding people who have that same feeling in them that I did, and I can put them through a fast forward of what I went through and of studying body language. Let's study your vocabulary. Let's study your stage geography. Let's study your intonations. Let's study the music that you're making with your voice. You're not singing. Maybe you might be. I have one student that's a concert keynote speaker, but let's study everything about the way that you're communicating so that you can make the most impact in the world that you're supposed to. And you can get paid to do it so that you can keep doing it. And that's the long and short version of the story. But I have to thank Mrs. Wilson. I also have to thank my mom and my dad for pushing me into it.
Well, I am going to give you a part two to kind of like complement your story because I try to tell people on this show that support means a lot. And that's coming from somebody who even to this day, I'm still very much like a very independent person. I'm very resourceful and I want to figure a lot of stuff out on my own. But you can't do everything, especially as an entrepreneur, alone. It is a really lonely thing. It can feel very lonely. But you can't do everything alone. And I wouldn't be here today. First of all, there's going to be an episode coming out. Uh, by the time this episode comes out, hopefully it will be out. But I had my first podcast guest ever, Scott Stoltz, on this show. Oh my gosh, it was already a month or two ago that we recorded the episode. And he and I met on LinkedIn, and he got me into I think he was doing a podcast or something at the time. He asked me to be on it as a guest, and at that point, I had never done anything like that. I was just kind of working on creating content on LinkedIn because I was going to events like LinkedIn Local in the DC area. I met a lot of really amazing people who were very encouraging. I was in a place in my life where I had just come off of being a manager at a really big media company, and they're still reorganizing from what I can see. But I took like a buyout package and I went back to being in operations. So I wasn't in management anymore, and I was just feeling a bit unfulfilled and was looking to like, remix myself, just find a new version of myself. And between that and going on Scott Stoltz's little show podcast that he was doing, I don't know exactly what he called it, but he had me on as a guest. And it between that and all the encouragement I was getting at LinkedIn Local to make content, they were all telling me you should go on LinkedIn and just post some content, just talk about whatever you're passionate about. And I did that for quite some time. And I noticed that I was getting a lot of good feedback and support. People were asking me if I had a podcast and telling me, oh, you should think about doing like a podcast or something. And I'm like, I guess like I've never thought about doing that because my mindset is nobody wants to see me, nobody wants to hear me talk, and you're shaking your head. You have a look on your face like that is total BS. So I'll just finish my story, but because I know you have something to say about all this, but I took a leap of faith. I figured out at bare minimum what I needed to do a podcast, and ring light, microphone. I'm still using all the same equipment. I have proven you don't need a whole lot to do a decent podcast. I hope it's decent. But anyway, so I just kept going and kept doing it and just kept learning and just kept, getting better. And I can hear when I go back and listen to episodes from like 2, 3 years ago, what a difference between my speaking skills then and now. But it was all that support that I was getting that and continue to get that really energizes me and keeps me going. And I don't think that I would be doing any of this without it. So support is very important.
No, yeah, and that support can come in. You're absolutely right. As entrepreneurs, we oftentimes we think we have to do it alone. And maybe that comes from a little bit of experience because no one's coming to save you when you're an entrepreneur. You don't have a paycheck to fall back on when you're an entrepreneur. So there's an element of that is kind of true, that it is on you. And that can either feel like a burden, and I know it does with most of us. And if it doesn't today, it might tomorrow. It's not that it completely goes away ever, but it's also a mantle. It's this responsibility that we have. When we think of it as a responsibility, I can't get Viktor Frankl out of my head. I don't know if you've read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, but he said at the end of that book, he said, we have on the East Coast the Statue of Liberty. It is a symbol of freedom, it is a symbol of liberty, and it's a symbol that people look to, especially when back when Ellis Island was really busy with immigrants. It was a symbol of hope. And he said, on the other side of our country, we really ought to have another statue of the same height called the Statue of Responsibility. And that statue's been designed. I think at one point the land was picked out for it as well. And then some political crap happened and it didn't get, it's not under construction yet. I think there's a zone in Utah that's taking a look at it. Anyway, so the Statue of Responsibility really fascinates me because it is a left and a right hand clasped at the wrist. The hands are holding on to the other one's arm. And what's cool about that is the symbol of it is required that we must first help ourselves. And that's the lonely part of entrepreneurship, that nobody else can do it for you. If you're going to go to the gym, it doesn't matter how much your coach can bench press. You're not going to get stronger if they keep working. You have to do something. In Jocko Willick's books, Extreme Ownership, he talks so much about it is on you, and there's so much on you, but it's not only you. And that's the thing. Once we have that right and left hand together, our first responsibility is to help ourselves. And then once we have climbed the next step, that right and left hand doesn't symbolize our own anymore. It symbolizes one of ours and one of somebody else's. Now it's my responsibility to reach out and help somebody else. And that doesn't mean I have to have it all, whatever it all is, figured out. None of us do. Alex Hormozy doesn't have it all figured out. Tony Robbins doesn't have it all figured out. Nobody that I've ever read or heard of or seen speak has, quote unquote, it all figured out. And those that say they do have a hard truth coming. They haven't come off the Dunning-Kruger effect yet. And that's a fascinating thing we can talk about later. But this is so critical when it comes to entrepreneurship. Yes, we have to do this, and there's parts of it that we have to do on their own, and that is our responsibility. Many entrepreneurs don't ever exist because they aren't willing to take that on. And the entrepreneurs that are willing to take that on will continue to exist only if they do exactly what you just said and reach out for support, because we are not supposed to do this on our own. So there is really a third meaning to that statue of not only helping yourself and helping another, but asking for help. Asking for help from your friends, asking for help from your mentors, asking for help from that person you're inspired by on Threads or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you find them. The worst they could do is just say, no, we're not respond, which is fine. But you might get the help that you're looking for. Maybe some Instagram video or some YouTube video is exactly what you needed that day. Maybe some podcast, maybe this podcast is exactly what you needed to have a little kick in the pants and say, okay, I have a responsibility. I have come so far. I have experience in whatever I'm experienced in, even if it's something that the world might think is not cool. Maybe if it's something that they don't give degrees in colleges. I have experience in that. And maybe, just maybe, I can help somebody else.
And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. At the end of the day, I think I just talked about it in another episode recently. As much as I want to target like the LinkedIn crowd, I know we talked a bit about what kind of crowd this show, what I'm hoping to target. And there's definitely a certain crowd that I'm hoping is interested. But I also hope that there are people listening and they like the show, or they're just coming across it and they find the episode interesting or whatever it is. I hope that they're listening and they see the possibilities within themselves and maybe get inspired to start their own business or do something that is fulfilling for them, because it took me a long time, and there's nothing wrong with climbing the corporate ladder and making a career out of, climbing up into management and doing all that. But I don't think I realized until I left my job of, 10 years, several years ago, that I could do something that was a little closer to who I am and what I am about, that was separate from just having, and I always catch myself saying just a corporate job. I don't want to necessarily put it that way. And maybe that tells you something about what's really in the back of my mind. But I, I mean, I think there's a ton of value, and I think we all have a place, and I think there is absolutely nothing wrong. Like, I'm still working in corporate America. It's wonderful. I love the company I work for, but I also feel that I spent too much time not thinking enough about what is fulfilling to me and thinking more about how can I climb the ladder? How can I make myself like fulfilled in that way? And I think entrepreneurship and talking to people like you, doing this show and meeting the people I've met on this journey, it's changed my life and my outlook. And I'm hoping that I can touch a few people in the same way.
No, absolutely. And that's the goal of it. I think that there's a lot of selfish speaking out there. There's a lot of people that become you can spot a selfish speaker when they get up and they don't give anything to the audience. They just give us either a laundry list of their traumas with no resolution, or they are out to just make themselves look popular and famous or whatever it is. And you can pick it up pretty fast. Those of us have been in the industry for a while, we get a gut feeling, we can tell. But those people that here's what it reminds me of. I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan. I love C.S. Lewis. Many of his books got me through some of the hardest parts of my life through simple, what could be judged as child stories. I don't know if you've read the Chronicles of Narnia. Are you reader of that. Well, I mean, movies have been made about it. It's not done it justice, but movies have been made about it. There's this one moment, and I'll just quickly give a quick summary because it's so powerful. Uh, you're probably familiar with the kids that walk through the wardrobe when they're in this magical land, right? Well, they become the kings and queens of that land. Then they leave the wardrobe. They're back in their old life. And then in a couple of books later, they go back. And this is the one that so few people talk about, but I think is so powerful. And this is the difference between a selfish and a selfless speaker. And this is the difference that we can feel when we listen to someone. When the kids go back, now they're king and queen regent. It's been hundreds of years in this magical land. So they're living legends at this point. So when they come back, there's already arisen another monarchy and they are having trouble fitting back into their world. They're recognized, but it's hard for the people to believe that they're real. But once they get accepted and say, oh my gosh, that's King Peter. I can't believe he's back. It's been 200 years. Wow. There's this new prince that's now fighting for his right to the throne. He's got a corrupt uncle that's unrighteously taken over the kingdom, and he has to face him down and engage him in a duel to earn his right as king back. Well, Prince Caspian is under the tutelage of King Peter, the old king who was there a long time ago. And Prince Caspian, at first, he's really rubbed the wrong way. And he says, I'm kind of nervous that you're teaching me all this, but you're just going to kick me out and take the throne for yourself because you're King Peter. And I'm worried about that because you have every right to do that. And you could just cast me out when it's my birthright to become the king. It's my family lineage. My uncle's corrupt. And King Peter says the most fabulous line that I hope every mentor will hear. I hope every public speaker will hear this message because this is the crux of what will make you an effective speaker, but do more than that. It will be the thing that I believe touches the hope of what you really want to do is leave an impact on the world, leave a legacy that's worth talking about so that people are left better off because they knew you. And this is what King Peter said. He said, I'm not here to take your place, but to put you in. And that is the mantra that I say backstage whenever I'm about to jump on or that I say to myself before I jump on a podcast or before I do my own show is I'm not here to take your place. When I train public speakers, I'm not here to take their place. I'm not here to take their stage. I'm not here to take their bookings or whatever it is. And it's weird because a lot of people in the public speaking industry, they have this odd competitive defensive feeling and it's just total hogwash. I'm not here to take your place, but I'm here to put you in it. And if you ever speak on stage, if you're listening to this and you are the person that wants to get on stage, I promise you, you will get so much further through not worrying about your fame and fortune, but by worrying about the significance of your audience. That's the key.
I love that. That is such awesome advice. No surprise with everything that you have shared with us today. Just simply amazing. Maybe you can continue with that thought, kinda, hopefully, by just, I know we're getting a little short on time, so I want to give you an opportunity to just talk a little bit about what people can expect when they learn from you. I think we've already gotten a very good feel and indication of that because I really want to take you everywhere I go now. But I know you talk a bit about like stage fright. That's a very important thing. Just talk a little bit about that and what else people can expect to learn and grow on through your tutelage.
Well, the reason that my husband and I started this as a business, as a company, was because we have a goal. We're raising 6 kids. And by golly, if we are just totally inept sometimes at doing it, and I've been a kid myself before. I don't know how often I believed my parents, but I would believe the person next to them. So as parents, we started this business because we want to create a better world, a better environment for us to raise our children in. We want to put the microphone up to the mouths of people whose messages make a difference in a way that we can get behind, because I'm not willing to put a microphone up to everyone's mouth. I don't think everyone deserves my microphone anyway. I'm not going to limit your free speech. That's not what I want to convey. There's free speech for a reason, and there should be. But I'm not going to amplify a message that I can't get behind. And so the people that I work with are people whose messages I can get behind, whose messages I could put my stamp of approval on and said, yeah, no, I endorse this person because I've made the mistake. I've endorsed people as an MC on stage that I can't get behind, and that's a crappy, crappy feeling. But when we started this business, that's why. And so when we do this, it's our goal to not only teach you how to communicate effectively through the power of feedback, the power of implementation, through the power of understanding congruency between your voice and your tone and your body language and all the things and the energies and all of that fun stuff, but to then put you on as many stages as we possibly can. And we do that. And, if you're listening to this and that's something that you want, if it's okay, Mark, I'd love to just make something available to your audience with your permission. So I have this database. I've had my VA help me aggregate over the past 5 years a list of podcasts, and they've all said that they need guests, and they all have their application links included. And there's over 1,000 shows, and you can keyword search it by your topic or your expertise if you want. If you go to mariannehickman.com/database, you can go and download that. And Mark, thank you for being so generous and allowing me to give that to people. And you can go download that and you can go apply to be on podcast. You can share about message. That doesn't mean you have to have your keynote ready. It doesn't mean you have to be a professional polished speaker. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect in anything. None of us are. But it can be the beginning or the next step into sharing a message and sharing a story that can change lives.
And for those of you listening, I did give my consent. All I did was nod because I didn't want to interrupt Marianne, but I did give my consent for her to do that. I think that's a really wonderful thing you're doing. And before I ask you to tell everybody how they can find you and work with you, I want to add that your message about the people that you get behind is very similar to how I approach this show. Every single guest that you hear on this show, I don't just go through and say, okay, cool, okay, cool, okay, cool. I really put thought and try to bring something a little different to the table for every episode, whether it's something they do, whether it's their story. And I think between myself and Marianne, I think that's great advice, whether you want to do what she does, whether you want to do what I do, or you want to start another business, whatever that might be. I think it's very important to think about your audience and how you can keep them entertained and interested in what you're doing. And hopefully, I'm doing that and have been successful and effective because I put a lot of thought into that, and I thought how you put all that just now was perfect. I 1,000% agree. So if you have a thought on that, you can add that because I know we're getting short on time. And if you could tell us how people can find you and work with you, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm on any platform that you're on. I'm on Twitch. I've never even logged into it, but I have content there. But I'm most active on Instagram. So I'm on actually Instagram Live while we're doing this show right now. That's where you can find me. Maybe I'm old school. I don't know. But I'm active on Instagram. I'm a little more active on LinkedIn than I used to be. But if you send me a message on LinkedIn, I promise I will not see it for at least a week. So just message me. In fact, I have my phone number. I send that out 801-509-5495. Feel free to text me any questions, or if you need someone who's a cheerleader for your cause, let me know what your cause is and I'll let you know if I can be a cheerleader for it. That's what we are here to do, my husband and I, apart from being husband and wife and parents to our kids. That's what we're here to do.
Well, Marianne, in all seriousness and sincerity, and I guess a little bit of joking, but I really wish I could take you everywhere. You are just absolutely remarkable. You've such an incredible viewpoint on public speaking, on life, uh, just everything we talked about today. This could easily have been like a 5 hour episode, but we both have to run off to other things. So thank you very much for being here today. This was amazing.
Mark, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for hosting a podcast that does so much good in the world.
I certainly hope so. That's if you didn't hear it in this episode, you'll hear it in other episodes, all the other goals and reasons why I'm doing this. There are so many I shared just this time around. But Anyway, thank you again, Marianne Hickman. I'm Mark Schmidt. Most of the time I fail to say my name until the end, but I am Mark Schmidt, your host, and you just listened to Mark My Words. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you very soon. Bye. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.